All right, welcome everybody. It is the Monday of week 4 post Hurricane Irma. We are here in class taking a look at all of the awesome portfolio sites that you guys were still able to initiate and pour yourselves into during the time that we have been kind of under siege here in Florida by the storm. So what I'm going to do is poke through each one of the sites that were submitted just to give you guys some positive, productive feedback about how to push this site to its next best place. Please know that for many of you, this might be the first quote unquote portfolio site that you've put together. Let me tell you, it won't be the last. This is the beginning of a lot of work that you're going to do, especially throughout the MCBS program, where you're taking the things that you're doing in either your classes or collaborating on outside of class with maybe some real world clients and putting them together as hopefully an articulate and accurate picture of who you want to be in the industry and the types of work that you want to attract. So the focus here was just to get started. Your time in Portfolio 3 will be spent working a little bit more on aspects of your personal brand, the aesthetics of that, and then also enhancing the content and the strategy with which you're laying out the content on that site next month into Portfolio 3. This was, kind of just to get you ready to do more of the work in that class. So let's go ahead and start out with Sandra's site here. First things first, just very clean and minimalist in its expression here. We've got clear branding information at the top. We've got her name, and it lets us know that she's an entertainment publicist. So that's nice because right off the bat, I get an idea of who she is and what it is that she does. And then it gives me the context to understand more of what she shares on the site here. So home, experience, projects, and contact. We've got a little bit about her, a nice friendly picture, and then it looks like her color palette is really kind of supporting everything. It's cohesive. These are links, so I can go ahead and click on those that are going to take me to different parts of her site. We're going to do that in a second. We have a little bit of background information here, so it just lets you know who she is and what she wants to do. I like that she's taken great care to curate this content, meaning that it's not pages and pages of text, but it's a few carefully crafted paragraphs that kind of help people understand what it is that she does and how she might be able to help you. We've got our contact information down here at the bottom, places where we can connect with her on social media. Although this does look like they are linking to Wix locations, so you'll definitely want to update those with your own social media if that's appropriate, right? Just because you have a Snapchat account doesn't necessarily mean that you should link that to your professional portfolio site. So you definitely want to ask yourself the question here, does the image that I'm portraying on my social media match what it is that I'm doing here on my portfolio site? I've seen a great number of students whose social media really supports what it is that they're doing on their portfolios. And so in that case, it makes sense. But this is an individual question that you're going to need to figure out what's right for you. It might not be Snapchat, but maybe your Instagram is really, a beautiful collection of your work as well. So that one might make sense. So do it on a case-by-case basis. So just going to poke through these pages. I'm going to go next to experience. So here, it looks a little bit like it's a kind of like a shortened resume. It's on point in terms of the cohesiveness of the colors and the layout. It says, where she's been working and just kind of gives a little bit of background in terms of education and that sort of thing. We've got her skills over here, so it's also highlighting, the types of things or services that she could provide to somebody else. So all of that looks nice. I'm going to go back to the home page really quick and just see. If I go to resume, it goes to the same page as experience. So this is, there's not a ton of resume information here. I would say, we've got just kind of your current employment and then your educational. But then I'm curious as to where my skills goes. It kind of goes to the same page, right? So I see a lot of redundancy here in the fact that from this view, I can go to the same place in all of these different ways, but it kind of makes me think that I'm going to go somewhere different. I just might rethink that. I don't know that I have a suggestion or an answer right out. It just seems that having these things here seem to be featuring it in a certain way that this page doesn't follow up on. Right? Like there's only a small little bit of skills in this area. One of the things that you are going to see and potentially come across as an issue for your own portfolio sites is not really having enough content, or not really feeling like, you know, I have this whole homepage, but I don't know what to put on it, right? This site is about you. Right? And so it stands to reason that some of this information that is about you that you're seeing here on the experience page could very well just go on the home page. You have to think about what makes the most sense. You would rather have one page that has a more complete picture and outlook of you than maybe 5 pages that I have to click through only to find just a tad bit of information, if that makes sense. Don't make me do tons of clicks to get to, you know, to the whole picture about you. I'm going to jump next to projects, which I'm assuming is the same as my work. So when I hover over projects, I see in the bottom left-hand corner of the screen that it's going to go to a projects page, as does my work. So we basically have a redundant navigation system here. So only one of these is really necessary. I get that this is kind of a design element. It brings in a pop of color, but I encourage you to be a bit more creative with what are other ways that you can, if what you like is this circular aspect or you like the color, how can you still include that but not have a redundant navigation system? So I'm going to jump next to projects. So here we've got project 1, and so working closely with families, develop a business website and an online presence. So that's cool. As I click through here, so we've kind of got we've got a light box effect here of what look like photography images, but that make me think that they aren't yours, or that, you know, that because of this here, car steering wheel, I'm a description, click me to edit. I don't have confidence, or I just don't know at this point. Is this your content? Is it not? Is this your project? Is it not? More needs to be outlined here for me to understand and make sense of what it is that you're trying to showcase. Let's see what happens when we click the Let's Talk. So it's taking me to a contact page. So what I'm seeing here is that there's really a large opportunity here on the projects page to give a more complete picture of the kind of work you know, that you are showcasing and why you're showcasing it. As an entertainment publicist, how is this work supportive of your goals in this area? Because to me, if this is this project, I don't see the link, and I don't understand how, as an entertainment publicist, you can help me with this or vice versa. So, you know, really just an opportunity to create more of a cohesive picture of what it is that you want to do out there in the industry. What really works about this site is its simplicity and a great platform to build on. So these are some questions you'll want to ask yourself when you're looking to revise this site into Portfolio 3. So next up, we have the site of Torad, and it's built on Muse, which is kind of cool because not many students are using Muse to build, you know, their stuff. So he also built his Real Deal Taco site on that. So high five to you for that. So we've got Mac Media, Torad Mac Ingram here, graphic design, photography, and videography. So I'm seeing a couple things here. One is that it seems as if you're branding yourself as Mac Media, which is cool. But is it Mac Media, or are you going to be going by Torad Mac Ingram? Because in terms of the information hierarchy on the page, you've really given more weight to what we see here with your name. So for me, there's a bit of a question mark. Which is it, Mac Media, or are you going to go with your name? I do see the logo up here. I'm not quite sure what it is. It's a little small in this capacity, and then it's got Mac Media written in this space. It's incredibly difficult to see, and I want you to think about when you're designing your logos, and this is something that you're going to do next month in Portfolio 3, Keep in mind the scalability of what you create. It needs to look great in a large size, and it needs to look great and be readable in a small size. And I would say here that this doesn't really work because it's not clearly read in this capacity. So there's something that will need to be revisited with this next month in Portfolio 3 in terms of the personal brand. And that's asking yourself, am I Mac Media or am I this individual? Right? And for many of you, there will be a question of that moving forward in your media careers, because am I branding myself as an individual or a person, or am I creating a company or a media house or a media empire or whatever it is? It just needs to be clear what it is that you're doing. And one way isn't better than the other, but make sure that it doesn't lend itself to ambiguity in that regard. So what's great about this site, though, is I know very upfront that you do these types of work. I would go ahead and we've got a little bit of an issue in terms of there's a lot going on here. There's a lot of busyness with this background design and then text over top of that. It makes it a bit difficult to read all of this. So you definitely want to simplify the layers that you have there. So you've done a nice job of kind of putting this kind of darkened shadow box behind this to make that text pop out a little bit more. That's a step in the right direction, but still not quite enough, because all that stuff is popping through on the back and it makes it hard to read. It just makes this look really busy, right? There's just so many layers that nothing is really, my eye's not drawn to anything in particular really other than this red, right? And I'm not sure that that's the intent here. Looking at what's available to me, we have About, Portfolio, and Contact, and then these social media accounts where we can, connect with Torad and other places online. So what's cool is as I'm scrolling, I'm getting to see like some cool dynamic motion here. So again, high five for playing around with Muse. You've got a little bit of an About Me. So the first thing that I'll say here is anytime you have paragraph text, you want to be aligning that to the left. It's good for titles and subheadings, things of that nature, but anything that needs to be read, it's a readability issue to have this starting point be at a different spot in each line, because in English we're reading from left to right. And so it's easier on our eyes that when we end a line that our eyes wrap to the same place here. I would also encourage you guys to not always be stacking your content, right? So here we have section heading, image, paragraph text. Here you could do things like bring your image over here, make it a bit bigger, and then have it be flanking the About Me and also this text, right? And you could better fill that. You can make the image larger because it's an awesome, dapper looking photo. And then, if you are finding other ways to lay your content out instead of just stacking it, you're going to make it so people don't have to scroll as much on your page. So going down to Portfolio, so here we see a few different things. I'm gonna, they're images, right? I'm thinking, okay, this must be an example of photography, but there's nothing that really categorizes or says that, right? I see kind of a watermark on the logo there or something, but like, there's nothing that identifies this as a photography portfolio project, or giving me like a title or a description of the shoot or anything like that. Same thing with this, like I don't have any context to understand like what's being shown to me or why. As part of a portfolio, I'd be looking for a title, a description, maybe what was the software or the equipment that you used, what was your role in any of this, because maybe you were the creative director, maybe you were the second shooter, maybe you were just the image editor. These are all things that are question mark that need to be clear when you're showing creative work. So here, I'm going to go click on this. Obviously it's a flyer of some kind. I've read up on the top of the screen that you do graphic design, so I'm assuming that you designed this flyer, but you don't want to leave these things up to assumption, because maybe this was an event that you planned and that you promoted. I don't know. And that's the point, is that there shouldn't be that question in my mind about what it is that I'm looking at. Scrolling down, so here we've got some skills. It shows, these icons, they're cool because there's some, visual elements to add to the page, though they're actually showing up pretty small. A little bit kind of hard to see the detail there. I would I would recommend making them a bit bigger. And here you have you say that you've been working with these things for a few years, and you kind of give these what look kind of like progress bars, but these progress bars don't really tell me anything other than relatively how long you've been working with one software versus another, right? Because you could be working with Final Cut for 5 years and be an ace, or you could be working with it for 5 years and still be a newbie. I don't know what the spectrum is or what the time associated is. So I would be a bit more clear, like if you are a Photoshop expert because you've been working with it for 8 years, say that. Because 8 years of just having the application on your computer doesn't make you a Photoshop whiz, right? So again, looking for clarity in the articulation of your skill set, right? So we've got a contact area here, just can send in the information. And I might also recommend a little bit of a call to action. Why should people contact you? Are you looking for work? Do you want to be hired? Do you want to collaborate? What kind of work do you want to do? Who do you want to work with? These are all things that if you make it more clear, you will get more of the kinds of people contacting you that you want to be reaching out, right? Overall, this is a wonderful start. And again, I share all of this stuff with you guys in such depth to highlight the opportunities from where to from here, right? And Portfolio 3 is your next stop in the next revisiting of this. So this feedback is meant to inform the choices that you make in those assignments. Next up, we've got Michael's site. So really nice, clean in terms of first impression. We've got your name over here, which looks like it's a home button. And then contact, education, work, projects, and home. And then we've got the repetition of your name here. I think that this introduction could be done a little bit more effectively if your name was located over here on the left-hand side, because my eye is first drawn to this home page and then it kind of floats in this direction where I'd like to know more immediately kind of that identity of the site. Your name gets a little bit lost here in the image. Maybe perhaps instead of just outlining this, maybe this is an opaque white square. So I can still get some of that texture, and it has black text on the top to make it pop out a little bit more. That's definitely something that you should consider for the next iteration. Just a little bit of about you here, and looking at this, I'm wondering, why is your content just taking up this little tiny area? Right? Why doesn't it extend kind of more of the full width of the site? It looks a little bit cramped, and these pictures are so small. Why are they so small? Because look at all this available space that we have here, right? So it says that you are studying media and that you have experience in these few things, but like as I'm expecting maybe that these would click on something and that I would see something, maybe a work sample of these areas, but it looks like that's not the case. And so there's definitely an opportunity here to highlight your efforts, skills, talents, projects in each one of these areas. At the bottom here, we have ways that we can connect with you in social media, which is cool. And I'm going to poke now to these next few pages. So we've got projects. So here, a video portrait. Again, I ask, why is this text wrapping here? Why does it, say full and then drop Sale University down here when we have got all of this space in this area? It just doesn't make any sense to me. It's likely that you have a text box that you just need to be dragging out so that it can handle the overflow of that text. So we've got video. I like that you have you've got this context. It helps me understand what you've created and then the software that you did. I'd love it if there's a title associated with that too. Same thing for this. Again, this weird sort of truncated text box, and then you give me a nice description of the project itself. So that's really nice. And the same thing for Real Deal Tacos here. So you've done a variety of things. I'm wondering if there's a way, to me right now, it seems like maybe this site would be more effective in terms of maybe doing a one-pager because on the homepage you don't have tons of content at all. And then you've got like some cool projects. What if all of that stuff was just early on, right on the front? So maybe more in like a sectional. Here we've got just a little bit about your education and skill set and some of the volunteer work that you've done. So this is all good and relevant, you know, if it supports what it is that you want to do and be, right? So I see a lot of full cell here, which is awesome. You know, but it just seems like it seems like this page could be consolidated in a way that is a little bit more impactful, because I'm not sure if I have anything more specific at this moment. Let me just poke to the contact page really quick and then kind of come back on that. So here, just a simple contact form where I can get in touch and how I can contact you. So again, I think my biggest suggestion here would be, because each page doesn't have a ton of content, and so that's something that we were talking about on an earlier review, about having to continue to click through all of these pages just to get a tiny bit of content. I think that the site would work really well as maybe a one-pager, that each one of these sections kind of highlighted you know, that information, maybe pull in some icons, some additional you know, photography to kind of help support that. This is a great start, because like just kind of figuring out what your content is a big part of the job. It seems like you've done that. Let's maybe look strategically about how we can better organize this content as we move into Portfolio 3. So here we've got the portfolio site of Robert Benson. So we've got the clear branding information, and that you're a media communication student, home, about, projects, photography, and more. I'm wondering, let's see, as I hover over more, something interesting happens. Like, it gives me an option for there's something there, but it doesn't actually show up until I hover over it, and that white text on that light gray drop down is total color contrast issue, so you're going to need to revisit that. The other thing is everything up here is in all caps, but then more is in it's just capitalized. So also I would then say, like, why do we have the link for more here, but there's only one drop down at that point? Something about that tells me that Wix has decided that your nav bar is too long. You might need to make this canvas larger, just so that it can accommodate your full navigation bar at the top. This to me doesn't look purposeful. This looks like something that Wix has done because this navigation area isn't wide enough. So something you want to check with that. We've got your name up here. I'll say that the gray on the blue, especially with the drop shadow, looks a bit muddled, right? Almost blurs it out a little bit, like maybe smudge is a good word. I think that if you were to maybe darken the gray just a tad and remove the drop shadow, you'd get a lot more pop there. So we've got this kind of cool image, and then a little bit of about you. I'm wondering, what is the significance of this image that it is more important on your portfolio site than this information about you, right? So you're pushing basically the subject and the focus and the identity of the site down on the page for this image. And that's not to say that it's not a great shot or couldn't be used more meaningfully elsewhere, but I'm questioning about the prioritization of it on the page, right? So just a little bit of information about you. You've got home, or you've got about, my work, skills, photography, which is a lot of what we see up here. So we've got this repetition. This, like, I'm wondering, are you adding it because you like the color? Because this is similar to what we saw back here on Sandra's, where on the home page, we've got this navigation and then these links that take us to the same place. When we're looking at it here, it's the same thing. These links take us to the same place. If this information was pushed up farther on the page, like I wouldn't need these navigation links right here, because everything would be up. Uh-oh, kind of screen went dark on me. Please hold while we kind of, oh, there we go. Technical difficulties in the classroom. So I know we've got maybe some haunting or something happening. Hurricane haunting. So here we have your contact information. So all that's great. I'm hovering over your contact social media, and all of that's there where I can connect with you online. My biggest recommendation here is to figure out a way to get all of this moved up higher on the page so I'm not having to scroll to see it, and then get rid of the redundancy of these links because we've got them all available to us right up there. So I'm going to jump next to the About Me page. So again, the use of this banner image is really pushing your important content further down on the page. This text looks a little small. It's kind of hard to read in that capacity. And I mean, this is nice because it's about me, but it's also a little bit about your experience and your education and whatnot. This is kind of a weird little graphic, or not sure what it is, and it's kind of disruptive to the overall aesthetic here on this page. So I think kind of simplifying kind of a lot of this imagery or texture, and the gray on the blue isn't the best color contrast, so I maybe encourage you to darken this blue and lighten the text, or darken the text and lighten the background a little bit more there. I think that this kind of rosy red brick combination, you're looking to include some color, but I'm not sure that it works with more of the muted. It's kind of like a conflicting vibe, right? Because you've got this muted tones, which give a kind of a chill, maybe outdoorsy vibe, versus this red, which is a little bit more intense and not necessarily complementary of the other palette that you're working with. So definitely kind of honing in on maybe 3 or 4 colors tops that you're really leveraging throughout the site in its entirety. Jumping next to the projects. So here we have, again, awesome imagery, but it's pushing the goods, and the goods being your content, too far down on the page, right? I'm having to scroll to see it. So we've got an infographic, so that's cool. And then I appreciate the title, and then also just the description of what you did, right? We've got a media strategy with the description, and this is a screenshot. And so here we can kind of get a sense of your presentation. That's nice. Yeah, so you've done a really nice job of curating a collection of things that you've done while you've been a student, and really highlighting a pretty deep skill set here. You give us kind of like I was doing some reviews in a last class on portfolio, and I call this kind of like a smorgasbord page, because we get a taste test of like everything that you can do in this area. It doesn't need to be you don't have an overwhelming amount, let's say, of photography or of videography that it would make sense for you to organize those into like medium specific pages. Because some people do a lot of photo work and a lot of design work and a lot of video work. So then for them it makes sense to kind of funnel them into those areas. But here you've got just kind of a really diverse and nice collection. So you give it to us kind of like a buffet, right, where we can go and get a little sampling of all that. So here we've got something that is just dedicated to photography. And so, now that I'm looking at this page and seeing that these photos are your photos, and that's why you are highlighting them in such a significant way on the site. But I will say that the black and white, it's beautiful, but it also doesn't match your overall aesthetic for the site with the color, and then some of the taupes, and then the reds. This is beautiful work and should be showcased here on your site. But again, I think the biggest opportunity here is for more of a consistent aesthetic. So last but not least, going to jump to that contact page. Again, we've got this weird sort of image here. We've got your contact and a simple contact form. I don't know that this page does anything more for you than this information you've already done down here. Sure, I have a contact form. Can you put this contact form in the footer of the page so that it's available on every page that you go to? Definitely worth looking into that possibility, because then you wouldn't need this page at all and wouldn't have to have this drop down. Overall, again, this is a great starting point, guys, and this is exactly where you need to be heading into Portfolio 3, asking yourself some very important questions about, how do I want to present myself and the work that I'm doing. Next up, we are going to be looking at the site of Katie Ashley, and we're going to refresh the page here.
Thanks.
All right, so we've got your branding information clearly at the top. We've got home about work. We've got your logo, the sketch on there, which is some cool commissioned artwork. But what I'm going to say is this right off the bat, two things. And you know I love that gold color that you've been using throughout. The green color with the white text is kind of hard and not as easy to look at as that gold.
I was thinking about making it gray, but I didn't know if like that was like so muted.
Well, so it's getting lost in the busyness of that image anyway.
Yeah.
So, something else needs to happen there, right? Because your navigation is kind of lost in the image, and then also kind of it's a little.
I agree.
I'm not going to say it's offensive on the eyes, the colors, but it's like it's hard. Like I have to concentrate to look at it. And you don't want people to have to concentrate.
I don't know if you noticed, but I made a little Witcon like right here. So
yes, I see that.
I was thinking about maybe making this like significantly smaller and then fading it a little bit, maybe putting what I made for that Witcon like right here. And it has my initials, but I can get rid of the initials for like the logo and put it right here. But I don't know if that would be repetition.
I think that if I can comment, maybe this could be right here. And
Is
it
there,
would look.
I need help and figure out how to do that.
Well, we'll definitely have to take a look at like what are the style options for you with that in Squarespace.
Yeah.
This was my other comment is that I know that you are very talented in a lot of ways, specifically and heavily in video and motion graphics. And this snapshot that I'm getting right now tells me nothing about that. Like there's nothing that like even offers, like to me, like what I'm seeing here looks more like
I'm a missionary.
It's
animate like
maybe an animator or maybe an illustrator. But there's nothing in knowing kind of how heavy your talents are in video.
So maybe taking this, just removing it from this, putting it here, and like I've seen it smaller. It does like work smaller, maybe like in this space. And then condensing this and doing my tagline, which is motion design, video editing, and graphics. So that's on my business card.
Yes.
And I could,
And what I'll say is this, like what you have here, that is a really awesome illustration, but it's not a logo, right? This is an illustration. And I love it, and it should definitely be used on your site because number one, it's cool, and number two, it's really representative of you in a larger way, as a unique individual. But what you've got going on here with the Katie Ashley is
that more of a logo?
That is more. Okay. That is a text-based logo. This is an illustration. Like you can use this in different ways on different types of mediums, right? Because you've got it in your business card in some way, I'm sure, or you can use it for all kinds of stuff, really. But you will find it limiting, right? Like, because can you imagine if it was just if this was all you used to identify yourself? Like, shrink that into like a small social media size icon.
Which is what like that little Witcon is. It's like that with my image faded with KA on it. So
again, like when we were talking, you need to be thinking about the scalability of this thing that you create and the versatility. That's the other thing that I wanted to say about it is that. And this is something that you guys, I really encourage you to talk about in your graphic design class with Jacob this week as you're kind of wrapping things up and knowing that you're going to be talking about your personal brand, just some ideas for how to, encapsulate this.
Yeah.
Like a logo and the iconic parts of it are more, encapsulated is a good word. Like this image here, it kind of like extends out into a lot of different directions, and you could crop it and do different things, but like it's like I don't see the rest of your body, and I don't see kind of the.
That was a Squarespace thing because I wanted to make it smaller, and like I just
There's all kinds of Anything you want to do in Squarespace is there. It's just that you don't know how to do it yet, right? And that's just going to require continued study and poking around and asking. I'm happy to help you sit down and do the things that you want to do. But each template also has a certain amount of versatility in it. So some things that might be capable in one aren't necessarily capable in the other. And that's something that we'll need to take a look at.
So say I already, because I bought this like when I finished it. Will I be able to change the template?
You bought the template?
Or I bought like the website. Like I paid for
you have a subscription to Squarespace, which is a content management system that provides a wide array of templates that you can switch out anytime you want.
Okay, cool.
You're paying for a service.
Yeah.
So you can switch it out anytime.
Okay, cool.
Okay, so let me kind of continue to poke through the biggest thing. The navigation gets lost. The idea that you do any videography work has not even anywhere been suggested, which I think if you're using this site to get work needs to be more readily hitting me in the face.
Yeah.
So let's meet. We've got a little bit of, so you're a content creator, okay, tells me a little bit about you. This is more like about. Like the let's meet almost suggests like contact. I like the colloquialism of it, like conversational of it, but like I didn't necessarily lead me down the path of knowing that this is more about me info. So we've got your show reel here, which I'm going.
I mean, I know like I have to figure out how to do a drop shot of that, but I did. That was like where I had to refresh it because I forgot to add the edited in Premiere Pro and After Effects.
Nice. Yeah, no, this is awesome. I mean, like, and your reel is so cool. I mean, we got to see that in Portfolio. I love that you have it kind of front and center. I'm wondering, like, if there's a way or if you'd be into having your reel just... Yeah, just like showing in the background right here instead of all of this. Just it's your reel going, and it says Katie Ashley, and then your
like
tagline.
My actual reel is up there?
Yes, your actual reel is auto playing in the background.
Oh, I don't know how to do that, but I would love, because that's what I do on Vimeo.
Yeah.
So I would love to do that. And
you can do
like,
that.
Chris does that for his website. I just couldn't figure out how to do it.
Yeah, let's talk about that as a goal for moving forward. Because what we're going to do in this class for the remainder of the week is workshop both this and Real Deal to get them to the place where they need to be before the class ends. So as we're talking today about your individual sites and things, like make notes about the things we want to workshop together on Wednesday.
Okay.
So kind of scrolling down.
I'm switching those quotes out, by the way. I'm waiting opposite a hurricane. I was planning on getting quotes from, those are actual people I've worked with, but I want better quotes from more like legit people. So like the director, whatever, those are actually going to be companies that I've worked with. Which
is cool, and I love the testimonial aspect here, but it like having the picture of you almost suggests that these are your quotes.
Even though their names are right underneath?
Yes.
Okay, so it's just...
Because people don't know this is you.
That's true.
Right?
I'm so cute.
And then you are kind of banking on the fact that people are going to, read this.
Should I go back to what it was with just the pictures and then figure out a different way to incorporate quotes? Remember how I had it before? Yeah, I
mean, and I love the pictures and think that they should be included because I think there should be pictures of you on here, and the quotes need to come in a different way because this doesn't work.
So back to like what it was.
Yeah, this is so small. Like, and also it's a list, so it's hard to read. Like you want to maybe you want to make it bigger, but then also like let's align these to the left, and maybe put bullet points with them because you kind of suggest bullet points with this. It's small, and it's just like it doesn't really highlight it. It just like lists it. Yeah. Right? Like you've done some really cool stuff. It just seems like A, B, C, D, E, F, G instead of being like, look at A.
The house television.
Look at B. Yeah. I mean, it's hard to kind of communicate that in a different way. But like, not just like this is a curation, right? It's like you get my attention for a few seconds. Like, do you want me to have to sift through all of this stuff, or what do you really want me to walk away with from visiting your site? So client showcase, view work, I'm going to check that out in a second. And then let's connect. So this is great. You've got your ways to get in touch. and then some nice call to action. So that was home about what's happening.
It should work.
Oh, there we go. Okay.
I love that picture, right?
Yeah, so it's a really cute picture.
So cute.
I don't like your nav hovering over this image. Like that needs to
So it
be,
needs to be up top.
yeah, so we'll revisit that. Again, I'm recording this feedback, so just you can revisit it and make the notes of whatever it is that you want to do. We've got these ways to connect, which is awesome. And then work.
I hate this page. I was struggling for hours and I couldn't figure it out. So I need help.
So we've got all of this video work,
And
and
then this is like, I want to divide it into sections like testimonials, short films, commercials, motion design, and then I want to add on top of this now my InDesign work that I've started to do,
yeah,
and graphic design work I've started to do since coming to school. And this page was being so rebellious. Like I was on the verge of tears when I was doing this in Starbucks with crappy Wi-Fi. And I don't know if I should scrap this entire page and just start from scratch, because like it was not letting me reorganize this information. I tried adding tags, adding
yeah.
categories, and it wouldn't let me add text even, because I was thinking like if I could add text and then like whatever, and like it was being so dumb.
Hi, I'm Gary Montoya. I've been a
So it's
I used to work for him. Sorry.
it's basically it's because of the template that you've chosen, and then like the page type or the module type that you've chosen has a different type of functionality that's meant for a certain kind of content, and you're trying to force it to do something else. There is a way to do whatever it is that you want to do, but not within this kind of functional aspect that you've chosen.
And then when I would create a new page, like I don't know if it was my Wi-Fi, it would crash.
Well, it's probably your Wi-Fi and the millions of other people trying to use it at Starbucks post-hurricane.
Yeah.
So it seems like we have decent Wi-Fi at the moment on campus, so we'll push forward in this in some important ways, like specifically on this page on Wednesday.
Yes. Okay.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so I mean, like if you hadn't, I've seen different iterations of this already, and had you not done anything different, it all still would have been a perfect place to be where you are right now. Like you did this site in Portfolio 1, yeah, because you needed it for something, and it will continue to evolve, like as your collection grows, but also your refinement of what you want to do with other people.
And then that was another thing, like, because I obviously can't like include like a whole film in like my portfolio. So like, should I have like screenshots of like maybe the movie poster and like include that in my portfolio? Is that even something worth mentioning for like the feature films and like, short films?
Yeah.
Like, is movie posters like a good substitute?
A movie poster, and then maybe you have a screenshot of a variety of scenes from the movie, and then if you have it linked to your Vimeo, like you can then say, watch this full-length
trailer. Okay.
Yeah, that sort of thing.
Okay.
Yeah, it's definitely worth it. It's just like, how are you going to contextualize it to help us like understand your role, what you did, all of these things. Like,
and a description. Maybe. Maybe I could have a separate page. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I have to.
Well, there's lots that you could do, but what I want you to think about specifically, because you have so much,
I have so much crap.
Because you have so much stuff, I want you to think about curation, being choosy.
Of what I could. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not everything you've ever done. It's just what's most representative of you right now, and the kind of work that you want to be doing in the future. Okay, let's talk about people.
Hi.
All right, so we're looking at Maria's site here, which is awesome, and also it's part of your it's your blog, but it's more than that too, because it's going to be your YouTube. It's going to be a lot of different things, which is cool. So we've got your branding information up here at the top, and then your story matters. It's nice that you include that tagline there, because it personalizes it, but also gives more of a picture that this is going to be sharing personal stories, right? So we've got home, series, about, and contact. I'm just going to scroll down to see what's on the page. You've got really awesome pictures of you doing what you do, which is going out, interviewing, and talking to people. I love seeing that. there's a lot of real estate here that's not being used. You say, let's talk about people, but like my first impression is just visual, 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 visual.
Okay.
And so we're kind of getting a sense of the story through the imagery, but I'm wondering if there is a space that you could craft in this area that maybe, somehow, gives some picture of what it is that you're trying to do,
Okay.
right?
Like maybe like in the places where it's blank, you could do.
Well,
like,
that's going to be hard because the blank space is different on all these images, so you'd likely have to crop them so that there is blank copy space in the same area. But I mean, like that is something that people do when they're trying to, lay this content out with text and images in a way that makes sense. So I just would like to see something else that describes the project or your effort, instead of just like at this point I don't have anything. I mean, these pictures are great, don't get me wrong. I love the inclusion of all of these pictures, but it's really just really pushing down the message,
Okay.
right? So here we've got a little bit about you, ways to search, ways to follow, which is great. I think the typography is a little small, especially when you are getting into, you do a lot of writing because it's a blog. When people are reading a lot more, make it a little bit easier by making it a little bit bigger on them. Think about the ways that we've learned how to break up text and to help kind of facilitate movement through larger amounts of content, and ways that you can do that with images and pull quotes and headings or subheadings in those areas. Like, so here, this almost looks like it could be a heading of some kind. Like, you could draw a little bit more attention, but it's like not that different in terms of size or the typography that's used. So it kind of just, it all looks the same, I guess. Look for ways to differentiate those sections in that way. So places to go, sign up, keep in touch, all of this is, exactly where it needs to be. Again, I definitely want to compliment you of the photography that you use. I know you had a friend come take pictures of you doing different stuff, but I love that there are pictures of you doing what you do, right? It's not just like, here's a model-y headshot of me. It's like, no, like I'm out here meeting with people, talking with them, and having you have pictures. I know that that's exactly what it's like when you're doing what you're doing. It feels authentic, and you do a nice job of kind of communicating what that experience is like through the pictures that you've selected. So I'm going to go to the series. So people on Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. So let me go ahead and, so this is the series page. And then
That's where I'm going to have, like, right now this is like the first series I have, but all the series are going to be, yeah.
Got it. So you have, this is one series. The titling of it, I know that this is your schedule, but I don't know if that makes sense for
people. Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, so it's just a really long name for, you basically are just telling us your schedule.
I was just
for the
trying
series.
to name it Everyday People.
Okay. It's not clear that that there are going to be more series.
Okay.
So until there are more series, this should just be highlighted, right? This is, I mean, like your main thing is a blog. I'm surprised that none of that, even if it's just like a summary block that has like, the excerpts of 3 different posts are available here.
That I wanted to talk to you about, because I was struggling and trying to make this page have like a little bit of like my blog on it,
Yeah.
like most
Yeah.
blogs
Mhm.
have. And I was struggling a lot, and I was just trying to like read and figure out how
Mhm.
to manage the template. And I was like, I need Emily, because like
What is this built on? WordPress?
Yeah.
Okay. WordPress is just, it's a mystery with every single template. It's like, who knows? And everything's in a different place. It's just like, I'm going to have to spend 5 hours like learning this new template just because it's so full featured and robust, but because of that, it's also can be really complicated. I am sure there is a way. We're just going to have to figure it out, and let's talk about that on Wednesday when we're doing specifics of that. But I would love to see the series highlighted here as a main feature on the homepage. And then here, maybe that this is just, it doesn't say series anymore. It says the name of like the full blog or something. And then we see like maybe the full archive, or like the, however many featured posts you want to have on that page. So on the about, just a little bit of view. I'm not loving the way that this content block is really kind of scrunching everything up over here. I think probably make this a 1-column template, because then we have all of this empty space and all of this is pushed over in this way, right? And I'm sure that that's an option for your template as well. Just a nice information about you. You do a nice job of breaking this up. Again, though, like the typography, maybe alter it a little bit more. I'm wondering if maybe you can pull this font in kind of elsewhere throughout. That could be kind of nice. And then contact. So here, this page doesn't give me anything more than everything else we've already seen. It just seems like if you include maybe a contact form, you already have your social media here. Down here, that this page isn't, it's just an extra click at this point. So, because like as your sites continue to grow, you're going to get more and more and more content and things that you want to put on it. So you need to again be thoughtful and strategic about where and why and how many clicks someone has to go through to get to. I mean, that's not to say that you can't have contact information in more than one place, for sure. But it just seems like there's not tons on this page, so it just kind of seems like maybe you could put it all in the footer and then it's all just available on every page. But we can look into that. What I love about this is how much work you've already put into it, how much content there is, and just the possibilities for showcasing it in a really thoughtful way. Yay! All right, now we're going to switch gears slightly, because we're going to look at what Stephanie's been working on in her web class, and take a look at the 2 sites. Now, just to set this up, Stephanie, you did 2 sites. One of them is for an event, like a rapid launch of a site for an event, and then the other one is you were looking at a charity locally and doing some redesign of a nonprofit website. Okay, so we're going to start with this one because this is the full site. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so here we've got the Catholic Charities of Central Florida. The first thing that I'll say is that logo at the top is so darn small that you can't even actually read what it says. So therefore, it's not effective in its placement there or in communicating an identity for the site at all. What I would do, because this template is going to force your logo to have a max height, is what my gut feeling is about it. It looks like a Weebly. And knowing that you likely didn't have different variations of the logo to choose from, you're being forced into a logo that needs to be at least 3 times that size, being forced into the max height of this particular template. Now, one thing that could be done here is that maybe it could just say the words in a horizontal line, Catholic Charities of such and such. And then in this, instead of having faith, compassion, and service, this is where that full logo with the iconic kind of illustrated elements is being shown, right? And you can still have faith, compassion, and service, but it kind of shows up maybe down here as more of like a tagline. So it seems like you could, if you had a transparent version of that logo, you could place it over this image, and that would look nice.
So you're saying that just replacing those entire words, and you think the logo would look good there instead?
If this logo was here,
yeah,
about as big as these words, and that the logo was transparent, right? Now, because you have the ability, and this is all kind of just an exercise anyway, you could go in and recreate. If you don't have a transparent version of this, just recreate one that looks similar,
okay,
right? Because, just to show more of a better mock-up of good design, right?
Okay.
So scrolling down what we do, so here are kind of the main service areas and kind of some images. This line looks like a bit of a floater. Okay, it's a section separator. I see it now. Yeah, and then that element is continued and replicated as a section provider, so that makes sense. I would do, so this looks, it kind of throws off your grid because it drops to the second line. I would just, I would rewrite that to fit on one line. I would figure out a way to streamline that text to say something like, you know, refugee care, something along the lines of that. Because again, this is an exercise for you. Because you're not actually doing this for this particular entity who's going to come back and say, oh, you know, we need it to say this exactly. You're trying to showcase good design in what you've done. And so that could be something that you can do. So thank you to our partners. So here you're kind of highlighting who they work with. And just that, you know, it's always nice when you're doing fictitious student work to make sure that that stuff is highlighted in the footers of, you know, whatever it is that you create, because you want it to be clear, again, that this is an exercise. It's spec work, right? That's when you're designing something for somebody, you know, as a perhaps maybe this can happen kind of a thing. So I'm just going to scroll up to the top and poke through these other pages here. So we're going to go to who we are, and it's loading up. And we've got mission, vision, why we serve. One thing that I'll say is that it looks a little scattered. Like I'd like to see more separation. You do a nice job with the headings and then the subheadings, but it's just there's kind of a busyness that's existing. It needs some sort of simplification. And I don't know if that's like maybe doing something more like what we saw here on this page with the grid. And then the photos are nice separations and kind of blocks that help our eyes kind of follow that grid, versus here on the who we are. Yeah, you have to scroll and they're so wide.
You know, I originally started with 3 block columns because it looks better. The problem is that there are 7.
Yeah.
It's such a bad number that there's no way I can divide it.
Yeah, that's always when you're not working with but again, you're doing this as a exercise, right? So like no one from the Catholic Charities is going to come back and say you didn't do
7 like all of ours. So for the purpose of this
assignment,
I could just
for the purpose of just showing that I know what looks good.
Okay, yeah.
You know, in this case.
What would you recommend? I was struggling a lot with those 3 top ones, the mission, vision, and why we serve. I think it's important. It speaks a lot about who they are. But the way I want to place them was so weird because it's just words.
Yeah.
And adding a lot of pictures next to it would make the page so long. But like this, I feel like it's just like bulked up there. It's a little messy. But if I put them like underneath each other, it'll also be, okay, maybe I could just put a 3 column. I just have to remember.
You could do a 3 column, but then we've got a lot of that.
Yeah.
What if you mimicked something like this with a large image and then it says mission and then whatever, vision and then whatever, and then...
And then maybe just the why we serve
Yes.
be separate
Yes.
on its own. I'm happy.
Yep. Something like that. Because these large images are compelling.
Yeah.
And it adds a nice visual anchor and kind of a highlight space, which could be appropriate for that kind of...
Yeah, because it's not something that, like, the organization exists, I was very, very concerned about changing what they say, even though I believe that some of the things, like, that is long. Like, even if it has to be there, like...
So this is, and you know, we will get into more in-depth conversation about this when we talk to Libby about this project in general. You know, but again, as a content developer, as a web strategist, part of your job is to not just put all of the words that someone has given you on the page, but to ask yourself what is needed, what is a better way to say this? Is this clear? Is it too much? Is it too little? It's not just about being the hand that puts everything out there, but asking the question of why and what for, and making sure that you have answers to back that up.
Yeah.
Right? So your concern about, like, I don't want to misrepresent what they say is valid. If this was a real client, that you probably would go back and say, listen, client, my recommendation here is for X, Y, Z, yada, yada, yada. You don't have the luxury of that. But because this is an entity that exists in the world, there's a certain amount of tiptoeing that it just puts you in a rock and a hard place with making some of these decisions, which is another really good point for our discussion. So if you want to make a note about that for the discussion. All right. Jumping next to the news and events. So here we have upcoming events. We've got our 3-column layout. And so this is what I was talking about for you, Maria. Here, this was like her blog page. So this would be like your series page, basically. But I'd like to see something like this on your homepage. Just like this.
Yeah.
I'm going to go to the read more just to check one out. And so this is linking out to their particular, just in case, which is fine. So that works well, and you've done a nice job of mocking up what that would look like for them. So, we see here the functionality of this page, and, it speaks well to your design intent. Going next to contact. So here, just not a lot of information. Wondering if you could throw all of this stuff in the footer of the page. Volunteer. So this is a big area where they were having a push of wanting to collect information. So here's a volunteer form.
I have a problem with that.
Tell me.
I had a problem with that. And the problem is that there's actually a way that you can link forms into it. And this was another thing that I discussed, and I was like, this would be great. It's so easy because it sends the volunteer forms and everything, but there is a co-pay for it. So I was like, I don't co-pay for this fictitious thing. So I managed to do the main ones that I think is the main thing they would need for a first type of contact base.
Okay.
Name, how to contact, what your age is,
Yeah.
what you want to do, and have you done it.
Yeah, so it's just kind of an initial outreach where someone who gets it will call them back.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so maybe what you could mock up here is like, tell us a little bit about what you're interested in and how you can help. Someone from our office, when we receive this communication, someone from our office will contact you about the opportunities we have available, that interest you.
Instead of calling it a volunteer form, renaming it for the purpose.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah. And so then last but not least, we've got our donate page. So here to make a donation, you've done a nice job with a kind of a relevant imagery in the back. The button seems like kind of small and could get lost here. So like that's, is there a better way to?
Not in this particular one.
Yeah.
Unless maybe it can be drawn as a square in place. I tried to make the buttons bigger, and this particular site won't allow me to.
Got it.
Mm-hmm.
So here, does it allow you to put more space in between your columns?
Yeah.
Okay, because this looks like it's butting up like right against each other. Especially, it almost looks as if this is one long title. Vehicle donation, Amazon Smile. But it's two separate ones because of the column.
Okay.
And also, I don't know if this is a possibility, but the line spacing here, like where this wraps, can you make these two closer together?
Yes.
Okay.
I think so.
Because the way that it wraps, it almost like makes it look like two separate statements.
Other ways to help is the title.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Okay, well, so they are two separate statements. Oh, okay. All right.
I wish it were
So
like
then,
underlined.
so then there needs to be a different hierarchy of the
Of
text.
size?
Yes. Okay. But this page makes sense how you can do each of these things. All that's great. I would just maybe pull this down into the other area if you can, so it doesn't get lost, and give it more of a because all of this stuff stands out really nice on this teal color you have going here, and this kind of gets lost a little bit in there. And since it's like something that's important, donations, you want to make sure that it's easily seen.
Yeah.
like you've done a really nice job with all of this, all of the considerations that you've made. I understand why you're having the questions or approaches that you do about them. I'm not the one responsible for grading any of your work. In my mind, as an instructor, looking at this, knowing that this is not going before a real client to make these nitty-gritty decisions, I would encourage you as the designer on the project just to do stuff that showcases best practices.
Okay.
Because there's not going to be anybody who follows up behind you and goes, there were supposed to be 7 of these things and you only put 6.
Okay.
Right. I'm going to jump next to your awesome event form. So here we can see the logo bigger. It looks better. I'd even love to see it a little bit bigger. So here we have home and tickets and auction. We've got the Triad of Love. This, it gets...
Disclaimer.
Okay, tell me. What's your
I'm going for the
disclaimer?
disclaimer. This is actually designed for a mobile site.
Okay.
So it is to be seen in mobile, and this was super hard, and I actually have a question
Okay.
about this. Because when I was designing, because this is meant to be for mobile, I designed everything looking at my phone and looking at the way mobile seemed. But when you put it on the website, it's not the best. So I kind of felt like try to find like a middle ground where it wasn't like cringe worthy,
Yeah.
but
Okay.
still not,
Yep. I get what you're saying.
Yeah,
All right,
so
hold
there's
on.
a lot of things that are centralized, Emily.
Oh. All right, hold on.
That was the only way that I figured out. Oh no. Yep, pretty much.
All right, here we go. All right.
But yeah.
So let's say that this is how we should be viewing this site. And thank you for letting me know it was designed for mobile.
Yeah.
So we've got our menu options up here. The logo gets really shrunken down. Again, you need to think about how is your image going to be changed and refloated and resized based upon the dimensions of the viewable space. So again, this might look better if it just said Catholic Charities of Central Florida, and then somewhere over this banner image you have a better, bigger version of this logo. And then Triad of Love. To me, the name of it itself doesn't scream, this is an event.
Mhm.
It's kind of like, I don't know what that means.
Okay.
But then you tell me the when and the where. So, if someone were to say silent auction, oh, okay, that's an event. Dance-a-thon, that's an event. Triad of Love doesn't communicate that it's an event, so some sort of language that clarifies that, maybe Triad of Love event, something. So I would say that this when and where is probably some of your most important information, and it gets lost above this image. I think it's a great image and very relevant to the Triad of Love adoption services dinner. But so it's a love fundraiser dinner, something of that. Maybe it says Triad of Love, and then underneath it, fundraising dinner, something like that. And that can go over the image in a meaningful way. But then the when and the where is nice and stands out here. This center alignment is fine, right? And this center alignment is fine because it's not paragraph text, right? It's just a short, we talk about it being okay for short bits of text. Here you've gone ahead and left aligned things where you're expecting us to read a little bit more. Scrolling down, we've got some more cute pictures, and then the disclaimer info. Here, that's home. I'm gonna go now to ticket and auction, so join the fun. Wondering, because there's really not a ton on that first page. You just give me image after the event info. Why can this stuff be on that page? Or does it?
No, because the assignment is 2 pages.
Oh, the assignment is 2 pages. Cool. So this is a great second page. I don't think it's necessary. But a way to hit the assignment requirements. So here I can buy tickets. So what's going to happen? Nothing. It's just not linked. So here, support the silent auction aspect, and then it's just got an image. There's nothing on this page. You don't need this page. I respect that you completed the assignment as instructed. That's all I'm going to say about that.
I agree, and I had to figure out how I was gonna make a second page.
Sure. Like, what were you going to put on it? Yeah, I see what you've done here. You know, if this is an event-specific thing done by the Catholic Charities, maybe you have a page that's more about Catholic Charities or something. I don't know if that's the requirement.
That also makes sense.
Or maybe past events or something, or future events.
Or a calendar. Or events.
Or,
No? Okay.
I mean, there's lots of,
No, that's fine.
To link this to the other events, that would make sense, actually.
yeah,
It's
okay.
a great second page.
Yeah, so like, just a way that you can buy tickets for future events, maybe.
Yeah, the reason the tickets button doesn't link to anything is for the same reason that the tickets must be purchased in advance, but you reach out to a person. I didn't want
Oh, yeah.
reaching out.
Yeah. Noted, and good idea.
Yeah.
Yes, I mean, like, you've done a lot of great work here, and I can see a lot of thoughtfulness in your design. As someone who is offering feedback on assignments that I didn't write myself, you know, take everything that I said with a grain of salt. I'm just giving you kind of feedback from my perspective as a web user, as a web designer, and as an instructor who thinks probably the best thing for you to do is just showcase intentional thinking, right, on this. But overall, like, really nice work. And if you want to, on Wednesday, we can bring up your portfolio and maybe talk about some ideas for your portfolio moving forward. Moving forward, like, not like for you to do this month, but like you're getting close enough that you're going to have to be revisiting that.
No, I'm planning. That is actually, because I don't think it's an assignment for next month, but it has to be my goal.
Yes.
I need to get all my stuff together. And ready.
Yep. All right, so I'm going to stop the recording of this at this point so that I can start to get this processed. But again, if anybody has questions about the feedback that was provided, or you know, special questions on how to take their design to its next place, you guys just let me know.